So he had a long, full life, and he led his life the way he wanted to.
Sidney Horman was just a month shy of his 91st birthday when he passed away nearly 18 years ago.
The most valuable thing my father ever gave me was an example and encouragement.
Remembered by his son, Chuck Horman, who in his way has followed in his father's footsteps.
He wanted the name Horman Construction Company to go on for one more generation, and so I took over the name Horman Construction, and it still exists, and it's been kind of a legacy that's fun to have.
Sidney Horman has been credited with creating the modern-day mall, an enclosed, climatized shopping center.
His first was in 1952. It was in Las Vegas. It was called the Fabulous Vegas Village.
Patterned after the Great Bazaar in Istanbul.
And he came back and thought, you know, we ought to do that on a grand scale, and especially where the climate's bad, so people don't have to walk through the snow or the heat or the rain or something. And so he called it climatized. That was a word that he started.
It was a hit, and Horman went on to build more than 250 major shopping centers, including Valley Fair and Cottonwood malls in the Salt Lake area. He worked as a consultant to scores more known throughout the industry, but his son remembering a time when his father's work was kept quiet.
They had some programs going on here in Salt Lake that were top secret.
Little Japan, Little Okinawa, and Little Berlin, all replicas Horman built some 50 miles southwest of Tooele.
They had to have every detail perfect, and if you didn't do it right, you had to redo it. And then as soon as it was all finished, they would bomb it and see how the bombs worked on it.
Helping win the war, but never able to boast.
And he couldn't tell anybody what he was doing. He had hundreds of people working for him, and they were all sworn to secrecy.
Sidney was just 17 when he left school and bought a cement mixer.
Doing things like sidewalks, steps going into the fronts of houses, and foundations, and he'd pour basement floors. And he did that for several years, and pretty soon he bought more cement mixers and then trucks, and had a staff of people working for him, and he was still a teenager.
Still young, he began to support his family, able to find such success because of a business practice he adhered to from the very beginning.
When he was on the job, he would do it right, he would do it timely, and you didn't need to worry.
Sidney and his wife Vioma married in 1934 when times were tough.
They didn't even have a wedding reception because they didn't think that any of their friends could afford to buy wedding gifts, and they didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable.
They lived in Sugar House, where they had 3 children, and Sidney built his first gas station.
He built a gas station there, and he was buying the gas and making 3 cents a gallon profit on it, and it was just great. So then he built another gas station.
Part of why he was able to land his first job with one of the big oil companies.
They gave him job after job after job, and most of them were cost plus, where he didn't even have to give a bid on it, and they sent him all over the West to build gas stations.
More than 300 of them, also gas depots and company headquarters. But it was the work he did with the church Chuck says was his father's greatest joy.
He was still heavily involved in the church and the stake and things, and then he was called to be on the General Priesthood Welfare Committee.
Among other major projects, he built the first centralized welfare building in Salt Lake.
Involved with that to the point that he just loved it and really enjoyed working with the church.
He became close friends with church leaders and apostles at the time and says it was his favorite job. Chuck says his father taught him the value of hard work when he was just 14 and wanted a car.
Any car you want, the day you turn 16, I just have 2 rules. I won't have a piece of junk parked in the driveway, so it's got to be a nice car, and you have to pay for it yourself.
And he says it was a good lesson to learn.
He wanted me to know that I needed to work hard, and I think those experiences were just extremely wise because it made me know that I could amount to something too.
Sidney Horman, a developer, numerous projects and many first of their kind, but it was the construction of his own family where he's remembered the most.
He was gone a lot when we were young, and he was extremely busy. He just always had a full plate. He got up very early and he worked long days, but whenever we needed him, he was always there for us. He was just, his family came first, and as busy as he was, no matter what the problem was, he always had time for us.